Hey, what's going on, everybody? My name is Corey, better known as the Seaman, and I want to welcome you to another edition of the Seaman's Cinema Sit Down. Happy Throwback Thursday. I'm back, man. I tell you, 2 weeks ago, I just I got derailed because of Avengers Endgame. I did the 68 hours awake straight to get in the 22 movie marathon plus two times for Endgame on that day. And then, that led into Thursday, and I was just dead after that. And then last week also just got away from me, a lot going on. But I am back, man. It is theater throwback time, and we're picking up where we left off. Last time we did one of these, it was Hellboy. Today, we're going to discuss its sequel. So why don't you pull up a chair, man, take a seat. We are getting ready to dive in. Spoiler-ish, but mostly spoiler-free, into Hellboy 2, The Golden Army. That's right, we're jumping into the time machine, taking it back to 2008 for the second installment of Hellboy movies from Guillermo del Toro. I tell you, man, it's been a while since I've watched this movie. But you rewatch this and, of course, the first one, but mostly this one. This one just, it captures your imagination so much more, I think, than the first one does. And it's one of those rare moments where I think you could argue that Guillermo del Toro actually improves upon everything he did in Hellboy 2 and delivers a sequel that actually might be better than the first. And you just watch it and you go, damn, man, I wish we would have gotten a trilogy with this group because, say what you want, man, the way Guillermo del Toro can make a monster movie and fill it with monsters, man, that just capture your imagination. I could just watch him tell stories like this over and over. And the thing I love most about these movies, when Del Toro's taking on the Hellboy stuff and doing these comic book movies, you can just tell how much fun he is having. Because when you look at his body of work and then you look at these Hellboy, movies, he really is able to do things that you haven't seen him do before and apply his ability to create monsters that are just absolutely fascinating. In a way that you've never seen before. He is operating at, the top of his game for this type of material. And there's so much good stuff. So why don't we dive in, man? And, the thing that, hurts the new movie is how convoluted and complex it is. And the great thing about these Hellboy movies, they're very, very simple, man. I'm okay with a really straightforward storyline. And here, we're kind of talking about a battle back in the day between elves and man, and first man kind of almost wiped out the elves. So the elves created this golden army of machines that kind of was able to battle back and eventually led to a truce. And the king is operated by a crown. So the king of the elves breaks the crown into three pieces to make sure that the golden army, won't come back. And flash forward to where we are with Hellboy. The king's son, Prince Nuada, wants to bring the army back. He doesn't like the way that creatures have kind of been banished by humans and how humans are just destroying the earth and, doing things that are going to lead to their destruction. He wants to start a war. He wants the Golden Army. And, Dad ain't happy about that. His twin sister, Nuala, not happy about that. But he goes out to collect the three pieces and, Hellboy and the team have to come together and take him down. And what's great is, yes, it's a very simple storyline. Bad guy wants to destroy the world. Good guy has to stop the bad guy from getting the thing that's going to lead to the destruction of the world and then stop everything. But Del Toro is just able to build this world, man, that's so rich and vibrant with characters and creatures and monsters. And the characters and their story has a lot of depth to it. And a lot of that has to do with what Del Toro is able to do visually, mixed with the story and just wonderful performances from, this group of actors that this time we get to kind of all see on display more, where Hellboy kind of really was the dominant force in the first one. We get more time with Abe, we get more time with Liz, and we add some new characters. So the world that Del Toro builds is just fascinating, man, and it really does. It just pulls you right in, sucks you in quickly. And he just is able to elevate the stuff that he did in the first one and this material with big action set pieces, man. I love the action in this movie. It's a step up from the first one, and you can tell that he learned a lot in that department and figured out ways to just up it. And it's great, But then you also have these stunning creative visuals, man. The creatures. We'll get into some of them, man. They are marvelous to look at. And then, they're made with practical effects, but also the use of CGI in the movie just creates this spectacle of visuals where you're just like, it's like porn for the eyes. If it is visually just so captivating, man. You could just sit there, mute the movie, and just watch it, and you would probably be completely content. And like I said, it's just one of these movies where you can tell Del Toro learned from that first one, and this time he's like, hey, I'm gonna do all the things I like to do, man. He's, like I said, operating at the top of his game when it comes to creating these monsters, using these creatures, and making a comic book movie, man. I felt this was a better comic book movie than his first go, and it's nice when you can see a director that you love learn from himself and other movies, like things that he's able to just pull in to create, a really fun comic book movie. And like I said, the action in this thing is stupendous. And when we're talking action, we're talking about Prince Nuada, man. Oh my goodness gracious. Prince Nuada, who is played by Luke Goss. Wow, man. His action is insane. He's, very, very fast. He's very acrobatic. The way he moves, it's gorgeous, and it's so cool. Everything he does is cool. And when you give him, he has like a sword blade that can turn into like a spear. Mind blowing to watch him do anything with that stuff, man. I mean, we start the movie when we first get introduced to Nuada. It's just him in a room training, and he's got the blade, and he's doing all these crazy maneuvers. That then it turns into the spirit and keeps doing crazy maneuvers. Even cuts like a droplet of water in half and just does all these things that allow the camera to do cool visual things. And you're just enamored with watching him. And the great thing about Del Toro here, he always gives Nuada space and room to breathe so that you can watch him do everything, man. It's not quick cuts and all over the place. It's, wow, you get to just soak in his spectacle. And like I said, you start with marveling at him there. And he just kind of grows into the movie and does, these wonderful things to, the first time he sees Hellboy, to this, kind of like one of the fights he has to have with his dad, to the final battle with Hellboy. You just are enamored with the way Nuada moves and fights. And that action alone just upped everything in this movie, but it doesn't stop there, man. The Hellboy action is really good too. He not only gets to fight Nuada in really wonderful scenes where the finale is great, man, because you've seen how good Nuada is, and to watch Ron Perlman go toe to toe with Goss as Hellboy and really make you believe that he can hang in there and do the things he does. It's wonderful. But then he also gets big monster action set pieces, man. I mean, he goes up against this one character, Wink, which also kind of includes Abe with this really, really creative like escape route to not get hit or caught until Hellboy shows up. But that's really fun. He takes on this like forest elemental, which is visually CGI stunning. It's like a giant tree with like root type arms, and its face is like covered. It's almost kind of like Groot-ish in the way it kind of comes up and then glows green, and it's gorgeous, man. And anytime it expels anything or saliva or blood comes out, it's this interesting looking substance that then creates life. It creates plant life and just this beautiful stuff. So when Hellboy finishes it, even though it's a death sequence, it's beautiful to look at, man. And that scene's really fun and poignant, man. There's a lot of poignant moments, and I love the battle that's going on, with Nuada kind of wanting to say like, hey, our people, creatures, things that aren't human, deserve just as much right out in the world, and Hellboy kind of having to deal with getting himself finally exposed to the world, and then the way people react to him. I mean, like at one point he saves a baby, and people are calling him a monster. What did you do to that baby? He's like, I saved it. So all that stuff is really, really relevant and cool for Del Toro to play with, and you see a lot of it in that sequence. And that one's fun. And, he just, anytime he's fighting anything in this movie, you love watching the Hellboy action. Like I said, Abe, we get more of Abe and Liz, which is just wonderful. We get more of the team, which I really, really enjoy watching, because the team is so good together, and we get more of them than we did in the first one. And even they get to step up their game. I mean, Liz's action, she has control of her fire powers, and when she turns on and it's just fiery and doing stuff, it's really cool. And like I said, Abe, continually, again, acrobatics, flexibility, things of that nature. The escape that he has against Wink, leading to that Hellboy fight, awesome stuff. And then you even throw in Johann Kraus, who, from the comics, is a German medium who learned that he could see ghosts and then eventually taught himself to communicate with them and release his ectoplasmic form. He could let it leave his body and then come back, which ends up being extremely useful when his body is incinerated in an incident in China. And then he's able to kind of go to scientists at the BPRD to create a suit that can contain him. And the way Del Toro depicts the containment suit, it's awesome because it looks very comic accurate. But like he deflates when the ectoplasm leaves and reflates when he comes back, and then you have him voiced by Seth MacFarlane. He's just really funny and entertaining, and when he has action, man, the way he releases the ectoplasm to either take control of a body, he does so with like a tooth fairy thing that we'll talk about in a minute, and also the Golden Army soldiers itself. And allows him to then also fight. He has a sequence with Hellboy where after Hellboy and Abe get drunk. And that's the other thing. This movie is littered with humor. And Ron Perlman delivers it so wonderfully. You laugh a lot. And the scene with him and Abe where they get drunk talking about love. Because, he's kind of falling in love with the Princess Nuala, the way the story goes. And obviously Hellboy and Liz, they're kind of having problems. It is hysterical. But after right before that moment, or after, he has a conversation with Krause. And Krause basically says, like, your anger is an issue, man. Your temper goes off. And he punches him, breaks the glass, and you think Krause is dead. And then, he has complete control of his ectoplasmic form. He starts beating him up with lockers. It's hysterical and a lot of fun. And I love when you see the creativeness of Del Toro in using a character like that. And then, you get into the monsters in this movie. And it's, like I said, it's like Pan's Labyrinth good, man. It's so creative, and he has a moment in this movie. It's kind of Cantina-esque from Star Wars, where you just see this plethora of aliens, the creatures that you see in this troll market that Hellboy and the BPRD team have to go to. It is the same thing. You're just walking around this market, and it is littered with creatures that are just fascinating and wonderful to look at. They're so imaginative and creative. I mean, it's the thing that Del Toro does best, and he treats all of his monsters so well. He takes so much care of them that, like, even when you're just walking around, you get to spend, like, seconds to, like, really digest everything before something happens. Again, something else that Del Toro does very, very well that the new Hellboy kind of struggle with. No room for anything to breathe. Del Toro gives everything time to breathe, man. Lets you take in the scenery, like at the troll market, or take in the action, or the heartfelt or emotional punches. He gives you time with all that, and it really creates a rich movie. And my favorite of all of the creatures he creates this time is the Angel of Death, who Hellboy sees toward the end of the movie. Wow, man. I mean, just this creepy kind of body in and of itself, but then, from the eyes up, it's kind of like a plateau of nothing. It's kind of like just blank. There's no eyes, because the eyes are in its wings. This is the coolest monster in the whole movie, man. It's so fascinating. You're like, I want this scene to keep going. I want to live here a little bit longer. And Del Toro lets you live there for a pretty decent amount of time. But then you have Wink, who we've mentioned a few times, and he's kind of this big, brutish boar type monster that has this like mechanical hand that he can shoot. It's attached to a chain, and he can use it as a weapon. Really fun sequences. Like I said, that battle with Hellboy, a lot of fun. And the way he uses the surroundings and the things that Wink can do. You really like him. He captures your imagination. Those tooth fairies that I was talking about, they're these tiny little creatures that kind of have like offshoot, almost like, I don't know what to call them, but they're like kind of like insect type legs, but not. They're bigger. But they got, again, like if they have eyes, they're very tiny, but mostly teeth. Tooth fairies, and that's the thing. They eat like flesh and bone, but they go for the teeth. So they get released early on in this movie. And you're like, how do you stop them? And that's, maybe one of those spots where Liz comes in. And you're like, oh, yeah, get that. But those are really cool. Like I said, that forest elemental that we mentioned before, just wonderful. The Golden Army is even cool. They're kind of these big hulking machines. But when they get broken apart or, defeated by Hellboy and Johan, they come back. And the way they put themselves back together mechanically is awesome. So you really like them, and then even the elves, man. All the elves are interesting. They're pale, blonde hair, or white hair, but they have all different markings, for each of them. And like even the king, he kind of, his head grows up into like a tree type form. You can tell that they're forest elves, and all of them are just visually interesting to look at. And you're just engulfed in all of these wonderful visuals of creatures and monsters. And again, something that the new Hellboy tried to do, just litter it with monsters, and it felt like it was too much. Here, you get tons of monsters and creatures, and you never feel like you're being bombarded or there's too much of it, because you have time to breathe and take them in, and they're all kind of given their own moments. I love what Del Toro does with the monsters. And then this cast, man, we'll wrap this up with the cast, because they're what drive the movie, man. You buy into their performances. Del Toro gets the best out of all the actors here. And like I said, he gets to use these characters a little bit more than he did in the first one, where it's not just Hellboy front and center. It's kind of the whole team. And you want to take this journey with them. You fall in love with these characters even more, and you just care about all of them, that you're so invested the whole movie. And it starts, of course, with Ron Perlman, who I think is just a wonderful Hellboy. And although I think the David Harbour version, might look better, Perlman, again, is like, you don't want to compare them because they both do such a good job. And Perlman set the bar, man. He was the original Hellboy and just nails it, man. He's great in his action sequences, and he knows how to have fun on camera. Like I said, that sequence with Abe, the humor in the movie is so good, and Perlman just gives so much of it that you love living with Hellboy, man. You just love what he does with his story, his relationship with Liz, and what's kind of intertwined into that, and what ultimately becomes his long-term story. Perlman crushes it. Selma Blair as Liz Sherman, even more wonderful than the last time, right? Last time she was so scared and fearful. In this one, she gets scared and fearful because of things that happen to Hellboy and their relationship, but she is badass, man. And I like the confidence that she has in this one. Doug Jones as Abe Sapien. Also, the Chamberlain, who, we got to see Nuada talk to earlier. Some other monsters that are in there that are awesome. And the Angel of Death. I love the versatility of Doug Jones in these movies. But as Abe Sapien, crushes it, man. I was so glad that we got more time with Abe, got to see him do more, and gave him a story where he has this kind of love story going on with Nuala and how that plays into the greater story. I love Doug Jones, John Alexander, and James Dodd, who are physically Johann Kraus. They do the physical stuff well, but the voicing from Seth MacFarlane is amazing. It makes the character so entertaining. You can tell how much fun he's having with it, and the back and forth that he has with Hellboy is amazing. Then Luke Goss, like I've mentioned multiple times, this guy just steals the show, man, with what he can do action-wise in this movie. I love him. Anna Walton, who plays Princess Nuala. Really enjoy her. We don't get to spend a ton of time with her, but because of the telepathic power she has and that connection she has with Abe, you get sucked in and fall in love with her really, really quickly because of what she means to Abe. So I loved her performance. And then, of course, you have Jeffrey Tambor in there. John Hurt is back briefly. Brian Steele does a bunch of people, including Wink. And just everybody that's in this movie. All really, really just strong, solid performances, and that supporting cast just lends itself to help boost the things that the main cast is doing, which is what the supporting cast is there for. So across the board, man, Hellboy 2, The Golden Army, is a knockout, man. I love this movie, man. It made me really, really wish we could have gotten that trilogy. I would love to be doing another Hellboy movie next week for Throwback Thursday's Theater Throwbacks. But yeah, man, big fan of Hellboy 2. Love Guillermo del Toro in this cast. They crush it. I love it. I've been talking for forever because there's so much in the movie to talk about, so much good. But now I want to know what you're thinking, man. Is this movie all good, like the C-Man says? Or were there things in it that you didn't like? Let me know those, but mostly let me know what you loved about this movie, because there's so much good content here to play with. So let me know all your thoughts about Hellboy 2 down below in the comment section. As always, if you enjoyed this video, please give me an old thumbs up. And if you want to tag along on all my adventures, specifically my theater throwbacks, when they are here, they should be more consistent like it was at the beginning now. Go hit that subscribe button and then the little bell right after so you can get alerts every time I make a new video, including my theater throwbacks. For the C-Man's Cinema Sit Down, I'm the C-Man. And I'm signing off. Peace. Well. If you aren't still here, looking for something else to check out that's C-Man related, why don't you check out a video like this guy or this guy? And if you really want to help the C-Man out in year 2, hit that subscribe button and come join the Cinema Sit Down Squad, kids. You know what to do. See ya.